Stop. Listen carefully, because this might be the most uncomfortable truth you will ever hear. You are not broke because of your circumstances. You are broke because of your thinking. Billionaires do not think in hours. They think in decades. They do not react. They design. Every result you have right now is the echo of your thoughts. Change your mindset. Change your money. This audiobook is not about fleeting motivation. It is about a profound mental reprogramming, a recalibration of your inner architecture. You will either think like a billionaire or keep working for one. This is an invitation into a belief system, not the flashy version social media sells, but the authentic internal blueprint, prioritizing patience over urgency, value over vanity, and compounding over instant gratification. The truth is, wealth is not created by looking rich. It is created by doing the work that the rich once did in silence. In these chapters, we will explore the dual identity behind the title, the boldness to think big and the humility to live small. Thinking like a billionaire means expanding your time horizon, making strategic bets, and focusing on leverage instead of labor. Acting broke means resisting lifestyle inflation, avoiding the trap of signaling success, and staying committed to learning rather than performing. You will learn how to protect your time, nurture valuable relationships, scale what works, and eliminate what does not. You will discover the quiet skills that separate the wealthy from the merely high-earning, and you will learn how to build a mindset that multiplies your capabilities even before it multiplies your income. This is not theory for the sake of theory. This is practical psychology for anyone who wants to build power, not just status. It is about shaping a life that compounds financially, mentally, and strategically. Decide right now who you want to become. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Billionaire Brainwave. Stop thinking small. You were not born to survive. You were born to create. Let that sink in. Most people spend their lives managing scarcity. They protect what little they have instead of building what they could have. They live in defense mode, always reacting, always waiting, always afraid. But billionaires, they play fence. They think in abundance, not limitation. They build worlds while others build excuses. Here is the truth. You are not trapped by your situation. You are trapped by your thinking. Small thinking is a disease. It keeps you busy but broke. It convinces you that comfort is success, that stability is peace. It whispers lies. Just get by. Just make it through. But billionaires do not make it through. They break through. The mindset of survival vests creation. You see, survival is an instinct. It is automatic. Every animal survives. Every human brace eats, works, and repeats. But creation, that is a choice. That is where humans separate from the herd. That is where billionaires are born. Survival says, I cannot risk it. Creation says, I cannot live without trying. Survival focuses on what could go wrong. Creation focuses on what could go right. Survival asks, what if I fail? Creation asks, what if this changes everything? That is the difference between someone working for a paycheck and someone creating an empire. You have a choice every day, every thought, every decision. It is a choice between shrinking and expanding, between fear and faith, between managing life and designing it. That is the key. Consider Jeff Bezos and the power of vision. When he started Amazon, he was not chasing profit. He was chasing purpose. He said, we are obsessed with customers, not competitors. That is not small thinking. That is visionary thinking. While the world laughed, he kept building. He worked from a garage, surrounded by risk, doubt, and debt. He was not managing scarcity. He was mastering abundance. He knew something simple, yet powerful. Profit follows value. Value follows vision. He understood what most people do not. If you focus on what you can create, money will follow. But if you focus on money first, creation dies. That is the trap of small thinkers. They chase money instead of meaning. They chase comfort instead of contribution. And they end up tired, broke, and confused about why their life never changes. Here is something billionaires know that most people forget. You do not need anyone's permission to think big. You do not need validation. You do not need approval. Stop waiting for your friends to get it. Stop waiting for your family to believe in you. They cannot see your vision because it was not given to them. It was given to you. You have a choice. You can live by their doubts or by your destiny. People will always say, be realistic. But here is the truth. Realistic is just another word for average. Billionaires do not do average. They redefine reality. That is the key. The psychology of expansion. Thinking big is not just about money. It is about capacity. It is about how much pressure you can handle, how many problems you are willing to solve, and how far your imagination can stretch before it snaps. You want a bigger life? Grow your capacity for discomfort. You want bigger opportunities? Grow your patience. You want to think like a billionaire? Stop reacting. Start designing. Because thinking small keeps you in survival mode, and survival mode kills creativity. It kills risk. It kills innovation. If you think small, you build small. If you think big, you attract big. The world expands or contracts to the size of your thoughts. That is not motivational talk. That is physics. The energy you release is the energy that returns. So stop asking, what if I lose? Start asking, what if I win so big that I change everything? You have a choice. Let us turn this from theory into action, because information without execution is just entertainment. First, audit your language. What do you say daily? Do you say, I cannot afford it? Or do you say, how can I afford it? Language shapes limits. Speak abundance. Second, rewrite your environment. If you're surrounded by people who settle, you will shrink. If you're surrounded by people who stretch, you will grow. Proximity is power. Surround yourself with builders, not just believers. Third, create a 10-year vision. Stop thinking in months. Start thinking in decades. Billionaires plan long. They delay gratification for exponential growth. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I made bold moves today? That is the discipline most people avoid. That is long-term obsession. It is not about speed. It is about direction. Fear of abundance. Here is something strange. Most people fear success more than failure. Because success exposes you, it demands more of you. It tests your consistency, your discipline, your identity. When you start winning, you cannot hide anymore. That is why people sabotage their progress, because growth makes them uncomfortable. But remember, discomfort is a sign of expansion. If you are not uncomfortable, you are not growing. You have to rewire your relationship with discomfort. Stop seeing it as pain. Start seeing it as progress. That is the key. The billionaire's creed. Billionaires do not worship money. They use it as the tool for freedom. They do not bait for luck. They manufacture momentum. They do not follow trends. They create them because they understand one thing deeply. Reality bends for those who refuse to think small. When you think small, the world ignores you. When you think big, the world adjusts to you. You do not have to be born into wealth. You have to be born again into a new mindset. That rebirth happens when you stop surviving and start creating. You have a choice. Final reinforcement. Let us repeat the truth until it burns into your memory. Survival is instinct. Creation is choice. Comfort is the enemy of expansion. Scarcity is a mindset, not a reality. Vision is everything. Strategy comes second. You do not need their permission. You need your decision. Stop managing your limitations. Start multiplying your possibilities. Stop counting what is missing. Start creating what is next. You have one life. Do not live it on safe mode, because safety is a silent killer. It destroys more dreams than failure ever will. That is the key. You have learned the limits of small thinking. You have remembered that you were not born to survive. You were born to create. But creation demands reflection. It demands that you face the one thing that controls every result in your life, your relationship with money itself. You are about to discover that money does not change you. It reveals you. Chapter 2. Money is a mirror. It reflects who you are. Money does not change you. Money amplifies you. If you are careless broke, you will be reckless rich. That is not opinion. That is law. Money does not create discipline. It exposes it. Money does not build character. It magnifies it. You have to understand this now, because if you do not, wealth will destroy you. People say, if I had more money, my problems would disappear. If you had more money, your problems would multiply, because money does not erase dysfunction. It funds it. It is not about the amount in your account. It is about the habits in your life. That is the key. The truth about money is neutral. It has no morality. It is not good or evil. It is a mirror. It reflects back exactly who you are, multiplied. If you are disciplined, money becomes weapon of freedom. If you are impulsive, money becomes weapon of destruction. You have a choice. You can treat money like a tool, or let it treat you like a fool. Look around. Why do lottery winners go broke? Why do athletes earning millions end up bankrupt? Because they never learned the discipline before the dollars arrived. Money magnified their chaos. That is the key. The billionaire's relationship with money. Billionaires do not worship money. They respect it. They treat every dollar like a soldier with a mission. Every dollar is deployed to work, multiply, and return stronger. You see, the poor spend money to feel rich. The rich spend money to get richer. That is the difference between consumption and creation. One empties your bucket, the other fills your future. Billionaires understand that money is not paper, it is potential. They know every purchase is a vote for the person they are becoming. That is the mindset you must adopt. Every dollar you spend either builds your future or buries it. You have a choice. Money magnifies character. If you are generous now, you will be philanthropic later. If you are stingy now, you will be greedy later. If you are lazy now, you will be entitled later. Money only multiplies what already exists. So stop saying, when I get rich, I will start saving. Start saving now. Stop saying, when I get more, I will give more. Give now. Because if you cannot manage 100, you cannot manage 1,000,000. That is not math. That is mindset. Money does not train discipline. Discipline attracts money. That is the key. Let us make this practical, because the goal is not to admire billionaires. The goal is to start thinking like one. First, track every dollar. You cannot manage what you refuse to measure. Know where your money goes. Every cent, every day. Awareness builds control. Control builds power. Second, create money missions. Assign purpose to your money. Every dollar should have a job. Build, invest, protect, or multiply. Idle money is dead energy. Directed money is destiny. Third, build the habit of delay. The broke mind says, I want it now. The billionaire mind says, I will wait, because I am building something bigger. Patience is not weakness, it is strategy. Fourth, Stop emotional spending. You cannot buy confidence. You cannot purchase identity. Every impulsive swipe is a sign of internal emptiness. Fill your mind with purpose, not your cart with distractions. That is the discipline. You have a choice. Consider Warren Buffett's simplicity. One of the richest men alive, he still lives in the same house he bought in 1958. He drives a modest car. He eats breakfast from McDonald's. Not to save money, but to remind himself that money does not define him. He knows this. Wealth is not about appearance. It is about options. It is about freedom. It is about controlling your time, not proving your worth. That is the mindset of mastery, the ability to stay grounded when your bank balance soars. Most people want wealth to escape discipline. Billionaires build wealth through discipline. That is the key. Money reveals your priorities. Look at your bank statement. It tells the story of your life. Every expense is a mirror. Every transaction reveals your true values. Say you want success, but you spend on entertainment, not education. Say you want freedom, but you buy liabilities, not assets. Say you want growth, but you avoid risk. Money does not lie. It tells the truth about what you worship. That is uncomfortable, but that is reality. You cannot fake your way to freedom. You have to decide. Will your money serve your ego or your evolution? The scarcity trap. Scarcity thinking says, there is not enough. Abundance thinking says, I can create more. That is why the broke cling to their last dollar and the wealthy deploy theirs. Fear hoards. Faith invests. Billionaires understand the paradox of wealth. You have to release money to make money. You have to trust the system you build more than the fear you feel. When you fear losing, you attract lack. When you believe in creation, you attract abundance. Money responds to energy, and energy follows belief. That is the key, the emotional game of money. Most people are emotionally unfit to handle wealth. They think money will heal insecurity. It will not. It exposes it. If you need validation, you will use money to buy attention. If you crave power, you will use money to control others. If you feel unworthy, you will waste money proving you are. That is why inner wealth must come before outer wealth. You have to become stable inside before you become successful outside. You have a choice. Heal your relationship with money or repeat your financial chaos at a higher level. Money is a mirror. Say it out loud. Money mirrors my habits, not my hopes. You can hope all day, but money only multiplies what you do, your discipline, your patterns, your mindset. That is why the broke stay broke, not because of lack of opportunity, but lack of clarity. They treat money like a friend to borrow from, instead of a partner to grow with. Change that relationship. Respect your money. Multiply your money. Protect your money. Treat every dollar like a seed. Plant it with purpose, because what you plant grows, and what you neglect dies. That is the key. Final reinforcement. Let us repeat this truth until it is carved into your mind. Money does not change you. It amplifies you. Money mirrors your habits, not your hopes. You do not need more money. You need more discipline. The way you handle $1 determines how you will handle $1 million. You have a choice. Control your money or be controlled by it. That is the real wealth mindset. Not luxury, not excess, not validation, but freedom built through structure, awareness, and purpose. You have learned that money is not your master. It is your mirror. It shows you your strengths. It exposes your weaknesses. It reflects exactly who you are. Now that you understand money's reflection, it is time to understand the force that fuels every billionaire. Not motivation, not luck, not talent, but obsession. Chapter 3. Busting broke beliefs, programming for prosperity. Think your thoughts about money are truly serving you. Are they actively propelling you towards financial freedom? Or could there be something lurking beneath the surface, something you are not even consciously aware of, that is quietly sabotaging your best efforts? Welcome to the mental audit. This chapter is all about uncovering those sneaky subconscious beliefs, what we call broke beliefs, that act as hidden money blocks. These are not necessarily the thoughts you voice out loud. Often, they are the whispers in the back of your mind, the ingrained assumptions, the hidden teachings you absorbed from your family, your culture, or even your past experiences. These beliefs are powerful. They shape your perception of money, dictate your relationship with wealth, and can severely hinder your ability to cultivate genuine prosperity thinking. If we understand the power of whatever you think, you will get it. Then this chapter is about finding out what you have actually been thinking deep down that might be creating a financial reality you do not want. Why are these beliefs so critical to address? Because your subconscious mind is like the captain of your ship. Your conscious mind might be at the helm, steering towards financial freedom. But if the captain below deck has a different map, one filled with money is scarce, I am not good with money, or rich people are inherently bad, you are going to find yourself constantly fighting against the current, or worse, sailing in circles. These broke beliefs are often deeply embedded, acting like invisible fences around your potential for wealth. You might consciously desire more. You might work hard. You might even try to apply principles of abundance. But if these underlying blocks remain, they will consistently pull you back. So how do we identify these hidden saboteurs? It is like an archaeological dig of your own mind. We need to look for patterns, your early money messages. What did you hear about money growing up? Was it a source of stress and arguments? Was it spoken of as something only for others? Were you told things like, money does not grow on trees, with a heavy sigh, implying its extreme scarcity? These early hidden teachings form the bedrock of many adult money blocks. Your emotional reactions to money. How do you feel when you get a large bill? When you see someone flaunting wealth? When you think about investing or asking for a raise? Do you feel anxiety, envy, guilt, fear, or unworthiness? These emotions are often signposts pointing directly to a limiting belief. They are the gatekeepers of your current relationship with money, your self-talk around finances. Pay close attention to the internal dialogue you have when dealing with money. Do you tell yourself, I will never get out of debt, I am just not a money person, or it is selfish to want a lot of money? The safe talk is a direct reflection of your subconscious programming or recurring financial patterns. Do you find yourself constantly in debt? No matter how much you earn, do you sabotage opportunities when they arise? Do you struggle to save or invest, even when you know you should? These patterns are often the outward manifestation of an inner broke belief. Societal and cultural beliefs. We are all influenced by broader narratives. Are there cultural messages about the evils of wealth, or the idea that spiritual people should not be wealthy? These can subtly limit your prosperity thinking and your pursuit of financial freedom. This is not about blame or shame. It is about awareness. It is about bringing these hidden teachings and subconscious blocks into the light, so you can consciously choose to dismantle them. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge. Confronting your inner financial critic, voice that tells you you are not good enough, not smart enough, or not deserving enough to be wealthy, is a crucial step. This critic is often just repeating old, outdated programming, those broke beliefs we are talking about. Now, imagine a switch in your brain, a master control that dictates your entire financial flow. When this switch is flipped to scarcity, your world constricts, opportunities seem rare, resources feel limited, and the prevailing feeling is one of not enough. But when you flip it to abundance, everything changes. Possibilities expand, resources appear more readily, and a sense of more than enough permeates your experience, paving the way for true financial success. This chapter is about showing you how to find and consciously operate that switch. It is about actively, deliberately cultivating prosperity thinking. And let me be clear, we are not just talking about occasionally sprinkling in a few positive thoughts. We are talking about nurturing a deep-seated, resilient success mindset, a fundamental shift in your internal operating system. Flipping the switch from scarcity to abundance is not a one-time event. It is a practice, a way of being that you cultivate daily. So, what does prosperity thinking actually look like, and how do we cultivate it? Focus on what you want, not what you lack. Scarcity thinking fixates on debts, on bills, on what you do not have. Prosperity thinking redirects your mental energy towards your financial goals, the value you can create, and the wealth you intend to manifest. It is about seeing the glass as not just half full, but as refillable. Embrace an abundant worldview. This is a cornerstone of the success mindset. It is the belief that there are ample resources, opportunities, and wealth in the world for everyone, including you. It counters the zero-sum game mentality that says for you to win, someone else must lose. Abundance is expansive, not limited. Practice gratitude for current abundance. This is a powerful accelerator. Even if your current financial situation is not ideal, there are always things to be grateful for. The roof over your head, food on your table, a supportive friend, a skill you possess. Gratitude shifts your energy from lack to appreciation, priming you to receive more. This is prosperity thinking in action, recognizing the financial success already present in small ways. See opportunities, not just obstacles. A scarcity mindset sees roadblocks everywhere. A prosperity thinking mindset, a true success mindset, looks for the opportunity within the obstacle, the lesson in the setback, the potential for growth in the challenge. Every problem contains the seed of its own solution. Believe in your own value and deservingness. You cannot attract what you do not feel worthy of receiving. Prosperity thinking includes a strong sense of self-worth and the belief that you deserve financial success and abundance. This is not arrogance. It is a healthy recognition of your inherent value and your capacity to contribute. Visualize and feel your desired abundance. Engage your imagination. Regularly visualize yourself living in abundance, achieving your financial goals, and experiencing the joy and freedom that comes with it. Feel those emotions as if they are already real. This trains your subconscious mind to align with that reality. Speak the language of prosperity. Pay attention to your words. Replace scarcity-based language. I cannot afford it. That is too expensive. With more empowering and abundant phrases. I am choosing to allocate my resources differently right now. How can I create the resources for that? Your words reinforce your success mindset. Surround yourself with abundance cues. This can be as simple as following successful people, reading books on wealth creation like this one, or decluttering your space to make room for new energy. Create an environment that supports your prosperity thinking. Flipping this switch is about retraining your brain. It is about consciously choosing thoughts of abundance over thoughts of scarcity again and again, until prosperity thinking becomes your default mode. It is about building a resilient success mindset that does not get derailed by temporary setbacks. Even just considering these principles can start to subtly alter your perspective. Imagine what becomes possible when these become ingrained. When your automatic response to any financial situation is one of resourcefulness, optimism, and a deep knowing that you are capable of achieving financial success. This is not about denying challenges or pretending problems do not exist. It is about approaching them with a different internal toolkit, a toolkit built on the principles of abundance and prosperity thinking. The world does not change first, and then you feel abundant. You cultivate the feeling and the mindset of abundance first, and then your world begins to reflect that inner state. That is the power of the prosperity thinking switch. Are you ready to make prosperity thinking your new normal? To cultivate a success mindset that naturally attracts abundance and paves the way for lasting financial success. Let us start wiring that switch. Chapter 4. Obsession beats motivation. The furnace of empire building. Motivation fades. Obsession creates empires. That is not poetry. That is the truth. Motivation is a spark. Obsession is a furnace. Motivation gets you started. Obsession keeps you alive when everything in you wants to quit. Everybody loves to say, I am motivated. No, you are not motivated. You are interested. Motivation is excitement. Obsession is identity. You cannot fake obsession. You cannot borrow it. You either burn for it or you do not. That is the key. The difference between motivation and obsession. Motivation is emotional. It is fragile. It depends on how you feel that morning. It depends on who clapped for you, who liked your post, who told you you are doing great. Obsession does not care. Obsession does not wait for applause. Obsession works in silence, leads in private, and performs in public. Motivation says, I will try. Obsession says, I will die before I stop. Motivation comes and goes. Obsession never leaves. It follows you everywhere. It whispers while you sleep. It drags you out of bed. It pulls you back to your purpose when everything else falls apart. That is the difference between a dreamer and a builder, between a talker and a doer, between someone who wants success and someone who becomes success. You have a choice. Consider Elon Musk, the embodiment of obsession. When his companies were collapsing, when SpaceX rockets were exploding, when Tesla was weeks from bankruptcy, he did not run. He slept on the factory floor, while competitors were at conferences giving speeches about innovation. He was working 120-hour weeks, fixing machines, writing code, solving problems in real time. That is not motivation. That is possession. He was not chasing motivation. He was driven by mission. He was not doing it for applause. He was doing it because he could not do it. That is obsession. Obsession does not ask how long will this take. It asks how far can I go. You have a choice, or the one who needs reminders, or the one who reminds the world what is possible. That is the key. Obsession is the fuel of the rare. Here is what nobody wants to admit. Obsession scares people. It makes the average uncomfortable. They will call you crazy, unbalanced, too much. Let them. Because balance does not build legacies. Obsession does. Nobody remembers the balanced. They remember the obsessed. The world is not changed by those who tried their best. It is changed by those who refused to rest. Think about every name that echoes through history. Steve Jobs, Muhammad Ali, Picasso, Beethoven. They were consumed. They were not motivated for a weekend. They were possessed for a lifetime. You have to ask yourself, are you motivated to win or obsessed with becoming undeniable? That is the key. The behavioral difference. Motivation says, I will work when I feel like it. Whilst obsession says, I will work until it is done. Motivation says, I need a break. Obsession says, I will rest when I am finished. Motivation looks for comfort. Obsession looks for challenge. Motivation quits when it hurts. Obsession gets addicted to the pain of growth. Because obsession is not about excitement, it is about endurance. It is about staying in the game long after the motivated have gone home. That is the key. You have a choice. Let us be honest. You already know what you want. You have known it for years, but you have been waiting for motivation to show up, and it never does. Motivation is unreliable. It is a visitor, but obsession moves in. You do not need a vision board. You need a mission that consumes you. Stop chasing motivation. Build obsession. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start fooling hungry. You have a choice. Stay comfortable or stay committed, but you cannot have both. How to build obsession. The process. You cannot fake obsession, but you can create it. Here is how. First, pick one purpose. Most people are distracted by 10 things. Pick one. Focus on one. Master one. Obsession is impossible if your attention is scattered. Second, eliminate the noise. Turn off distractions. Reduce entertainment. The obsessed do not binge watch. They build. Every minute you waste is a deposit into mediocrity. Third, make it personal. Attach your mission to your identity. Do not say, I want to write. Say, I am a writer. Obsession starts when the goal becomes who you are, not what you do. Fourth, act, work, or own excuses. You are not competing with others. You are competing with your comfort. Show up when it is boring. Show up when it is painful. Show up when no one cares. That is how obsession is built. Repetition without recognition. That is the discipline. That is the difference. That is the key. Obsession is not madness. It is clarity. People will misunderstand you. They will call you intense, stubborn, driven. Let them. That is the price of purpose. You are not crazy. You are clear. You see what they do not. You feel what they cannot. Most people are addicted to distractions. You are addicted to direction. They chase comfort. You chase calling, and obsession does not mean burnout. It means alignment. It means you found something worth losing sleep for. When you are obsessed, you do not need motivation. You become the motivation. That is the key. The obsession loop. Here is the beautiful thing about obsession. The more you work, the more energy you create. The more you get, the more you get. The more you focus, the more the world bends in your favor. Obsession creates momentum, and momentum multiplies results. Every hour compounds. Every habit stacks. Every sacrifice adds up. That is how greatness happens. Slowly, silently, relentlessly. You will look up one day and realize the people who doubted you stopped watching because you never stopped working. That is obsession. That is what builds empires. Final reinforcement. Let us repeat it until it sinks deep into your subconscious. Motivation fades. Obsession endures. You do not need to be inspired. You need to be possessed. It is not about excitement. It is about discipline. You have a choice to be average or to be addicted to excellence. Stay obsessed. Stay possessed by your purpose. Because when you are obsessed, you stop chasing opportunities. Opportunities start chasing you. You stop asking, how long will it take? You start saying, as long as it takes. That is the mindset that builds wealth, power, and freedom. That is how billionaires think. That is how empires are built. Stay obsessed. Stay possessed. You have learned that motivation is fragile, but obsession is forever. You have learned that success does not come from emotion. It comes from endurance. Now it is time to look at the next truth of billionaire thinking, the power of proximity. You cannot think like a billionaire surrounded by mediocrity. Your circle shapes your ceiling. Chapter 5. Plan in decades. Execute daily. The long horizon. If you want to think like a billionaire, you have to respect time differently than everyone else. Not as something to pass, not as something to kill, but as the most powerful force you can work with. Wealthy thinkers do not rush the result. They do not panic when progress is slow. They build with the patience of someone who expects to still be winning 10, 20, even 30 years from now. That long horizon changes how you make decisions. When you extend your time frame, you extend your possibilities. Most people plan for the next weekend or the next vacation. Some plan for next year. But the power begins when you plan for the next decade. That is where compounding has room to breathe. That is where strategies mature. That is where identity upgrades happen. Millionaires think in decades, because decades are where leverage shows its true face. When you stretch your vision, you make decisions that are bigger, cleaner, and more intentional. But here's the other half of the equation. While you plan in decades, you execute in days. You act today. You do not wait for the perfect conditions. You do not obsess over how much is left to build. You ask, what can I do today that moves the needle even 1 inch? Because if you stretch your vision, but fail to shrink your actions, your big dreams become distant fantasies. The bridge between a large vision and small action is consistency. When you compound small actions over long periods, the results become disproportionate to the effort. Think about how different life becomes, and we do not expect everything immediately. Patience gives you permission to focus. When you are not rushing, you can choose wisely. You can play the long game that everyone else avoids, because it is not instantly rewarding. You can read a book that will not pay off till years from now. You can build a skill that will not monetize tomorrow, but will unlock freedom later. You can nurture relationships without trying to extract something from them instantly. This is how billionaires think. Long horizon, daily work. Planning in decades also forces you to confront what truly matters. If you know you will still be living with the consequences of your choices 10 years from now, you naturally eliminate the shallow activities that steal time without producing value. You stop chasing approval. You stop chasing status. You start chasing mastery and leverage. And mastery plus leverage over time becomes unstoppable. Now let us talk about the fear that sits under short-term thinking. Impatience is one of the biggest traps for aspiring achievers. They want the reward before they earn the skill. They want the applause before they build the craft. They want the outcome without the process. But money loves process. Growth loves process. Freedom loves process. When you respect the process, time becomes an ally instead of an enemy. Executing daily is your insurance against regret. You do not need to sprint every day. You just need to move. A small step taken every day beats a burst of effort, followed by weeks of inactivity. People overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a decade. But a decade is built 1 day at a time, 1 email sent, 1 page read, 1 habit installed, 1 decision made with your future self in mind. This is how billionaires operate. They think big, they act small, and they repeat big vision, small steps, long timeline. It is a recipe that looks boring from the outside, but becomes extraordinary when time compounds the results. World sees the explosion at year 10 and calls it luck. They do not see the invisible years that built the foundation. Adopt this mindset, and you will stop chasing fast results and start building inevitable ones. Chapter 6. Be humble. At the bottom, ruthless with priorities. There is a phase in every meaningful journey when you are at the bottom. You do not have the resources, you do not have the reputation, and you do not have the leverage. You are unknown, and in that phase, humility is not just a virtue, it is strategy. When you are humble, you learn faster, you ask better questions, you absorb knowledge that others ignore. You avoid the ego traps that force people to pretend they are further ahead than they really are. Humility at the bottom lets you stay curious instead of defensive. It lets you listen instead of perform. It allows you to seek mentors, study those who have done it before, and build skills quietly. Humble builders are dangerous because they evolve. While others are busy broadcasting their progress, humble people are accumulating it. While others are performing, humble people are preparing. The world cannot see it yet, but the foundation is being laid. But humility alone is not enough. If humility is the mindset at the bottom, ruthless prioritization is the engine that gets you off the bottom. To rise, you must decide what matters, and you must eliminate what does not. Not politely, not someday, but aggressively. Billionaire thinkers are ruthless with their priorities because they understand the cost of distraction. Every hour spent on something trivial is an hour stolen from something meaningful. Every yes given to someone else's agenda is a no stolen from your own future. The truth is, success is less about doing more and more, about removing what gets in the way. It is subtraction, not addition. It is elimination, not expansion. People fantasize about adding new habits, new projects, new goals. But the real shift comes from cutting noise, cutting people who drain your energy, cutting commitments that do not align with your direction, cutting the desire to impress those who never cared to begin with. When you are at the beginning, you do not have the luxury of scattering your attention. Your attention is the most limited resource you have. Money can be lost and earned again. Opportunities can return, but attention, once spent, never comes back. That is why ruthless prioritization matters. It converts limited attention into meaningful momentum. And here is where most fail. They want to be humble in the beginning, but they do not want to give anything up. They want success without sacrifice. They want growth without discomfort. They want new outcomes without new decisions. But prioritization forces you to choose, and choosing forces you to let something go. If everything matters, nothing matters. If everyone gets access to your time, no one gets the best of your time. Billionaire thinking is essentially a long sequence of difficult choices made with clarity instead of emotion. Being ruthless with priorities also means dealing with internal conflict, that part of you that craves instant gratification, validation, or comfort. If you are honest, there is a voice inside that wants to prove yourself quickly. It wants to show progress before you have earned progress. It wants acknowledgement from the outside before you have built confidence on the inside. This is where humility protects you. Humility quiets the need to be seen. It gives you a mission to build in private. It allows you to be a beginner without embarrassment. That is a powerful thing, because beginners who are unashamed learn faster than beginners who are hiding. Let us talk about the social layer. When you are at the bottom, people underestimate you. They question you, they doubt you, and sometimes they mock you. That is fine. In fact, it is useful. When no one is paying attention, you are free to make mistakes. You are free to make mistakes. You are free to experiment without judgment. The bottom is not a curse, it is a shield. Many people do not realize that the most expensive mistakes are made when everyone is watching. The bottom is the one time in your journey where you can fail quietly. But once you start rising, once you start building momentum, the pressure increases, expectations appear, eyes appear, opinions appear. That is why learning to prioritize early is critical. It prepares you for the phase where the world suddenly cares about your decisions. If you cannot protect your priorities while you are unknown, how will you protect them once you are visible? There is another part to being ruthless with priorities, understanding that not everyone gets to come with you. Some people are compatible with who you were, but not with who you are becoming. Some friends support your current reality, but not your future one. This does not make them bad. It simply means paths diverge. If you refuse to let them diverge, you pay the price. Many gifted people fail not because of lack of talent, but because of lack of environment. The wrong environment kills potential faster than failure ever could. Humility at the bottom keeps you learning. Ruthless prioritization keeps you moving. Combine the two, and you become unstoppable. You rise quietly, you build relentlessly, and you ignore the noise. One day, people will ask how you did it. They will assume there was a secret, but there is no secret, just humility, focus, and the courage to choose what matters over what is easy. Chapter 7. Turn curiosity into expertise. Your unfair advantage. Curiosity is the first spark of every skill, every business, every breakthrough. It begins softly with a question, a fascination, a small pull towards something that does not fully make sense yet. Most people ignore that pull. They dismiss it as random interest. They choose entertainment over inquiry. But billionaire thinking treats curiosity as a compass. When something captures your attention, it is not random. It is a signal, a doorway, an invitation to explore. Expertise does not come from knowing everything. It comes from wanting to know more than the average person and being willing to follow that desire long enough for it to compound. Curiosity is the seed. Learning is the water. Time is the sunlight. Combine all three and you grow something valuable. If you remove curiosity, learning becomes forced and lifeless. If you remove time, learning becomes shallow and temporary. But when you keep them together, curiosity evolves into knowledge, knowledge evolves into skill, and skill evolves into expertise. Curiosity is especially powerful because it builds unfair advantages. Most people give up when something becomes difficult or confusing. They lose interest as soon as effort is required. But curiosity makes effort easier. Curiosity turns research into play and practice into discovery. That is why the most successful builders rarely seem bored with their work. They are not forcing it, they are exploring it. They are learning while others are enduring. But curiosity alone is not enough. Curiosity must be channeled. It must be organized. It must be directed. Billionaire thinkers do not explore randomly. They explore strategically. They ask questions like, where is the world moving? What skills are becoming more valuable? What problems are worth solving? What industries are quietly growing? Curiosity without direction leads to distraction. Curiosity with direction leads to expertise. There is also a deeper layer to this. Expertise is built through obsession, not casual interest. When something fascinates you enough to think about it after the conversation ends, after the book closes, after the video stops, that is the sign. Obsession is curiosity multiplied by time. And obsession is where personal genius lives. Every expert was once the person who just could not let it go. Another important piece, expertise compounds. The longer you learn about a field, the easier it becomes to learn more. Early on, every concept feels foreign. Every term requires explanation. You are building a vocabulary. You are building context. You are building a mental map. But once the map forms, new knowledge connects effortlessly. This is why beginners feel slow and experts feel fast. It is not talent. It is accumulated context. Here is where most people sabotage themselves. They interrupt curiosity. They jump from topic to topic, skill to skill, idea to idea. They never stay long enough to build depth. Depth is where value is. A shallow pool looks wide, but it cannot support weight. Depth supports weight. Depth creates authority. Depth gets rewarded. In a world full of general noise, depth becomes signal. And depth does not just produce status. It produces leverage. When you gain expertise, you gain options. You can teach. You can build. You can advise. You can create. You can innovate. You can solve problems that other people ignore because they lack the context to see the opportunity. This is why expertise leads to wealth. Every valuable industry rewards problem solvers, and expertise equips you to solve higher-level problems. Curiosity also connects you to the right people. When you are deeply interested in something, you naturally find others who share that interest. These networks emerge organically. They become communities of learning, collaboration, and opportunity. Smart people cluster. They exchange ideas. They exchange insights. They exchange introductions. Expertise opens doors that credentials never could. But curiosity requires permission. Permission to be a beginner. Permission to ask dumb questions. Permission to chase topics others find strange. Many people kill their curiosity because they are afraid of looking uninformed. Yet the irony is simple. The unwillingness to look uninformed guarantees you stay uninformed. Billionaire thinkers embrace ignorance as a temporary stage. They do not pretend to know. They ask, they inquire, they investigate. And because they ask early, they know more later. There is another element few discuss. Curiosity protects you from stagnation. The moment you stop being curious, you stop growing. You become rigid. You become predictable. You become threatened by change instead of energized by it. Curiosity keeps you adaptable. It keeps you updated. It keeps you relevant. In a fast-changing world, relevance is a form of wealth. So, how do you turn curiosity into expertise? You follow the trail long enough for it to pay dividends. You read. You experiment. You observe. You practice. You watch how the game works. You learn the language of the field. You understand what amateurs miss. And most importantly, you do not stop as soon as it becomes uncomfortable. Curiosity opens the door. Discipline walks through it. Together, they create mastery. When you think like a billionaire, you do not just consume information. You accumulate it, refine it, and apply it. You become the person who knows what others do not, who sees what others overlook, and who understands what others never took the time to learn. That is how curiosity becomes expertise, and how expertise becomes power. Chapter 8. Guard your time like it is your net worth. One of the biggest distinctions between how the wealthy think and how everyone else thinks is how they treat time. To the average person, time feels abundant and money feels scarce. To billionaire thinkers, it is the opposite. Money can be made, lost, replaced, multiplied, and recovered. Time cannot. Once spent, it is gone forever. That shift in perspective changes everything. What you say yes to, what you tolerate, how you schedule your life, and how you protect your attention from erosion. Time's the only asset every human receives in equal amounts. 24 hours, no matter who you are. The difference is not in how much time people have, but in how they spend it. Some spend time to save money. Others spend money to save time. That trade-off reveals mindset. When you value time more highly, you stop chasing minor savings and start chasing major opportunities. You stop doing tasks you can outsource for cheap and start focusing on the work that actually moves your life forward. Guarding your time starts with awareness. How many hours each week are truly being invested toward your goals versus simply consumed by distractions, errands, obligations, or other people's priorities? Most people have no idea. Time slips away in tiny fragments. 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, an hour lost scrolling, a day lost reacting. Billionaire thinkers do not allow time to leak unnoticed. They track it. They allocate it. They respect it. They defend it. There is a phrase worth remembering. Everything has a cost, even free things. Free entertainment costs attention. Free conversations cost focus. Free favors cost energy. Free invitations cost time away from your mission. The currency might not be money, but the invoice always arrives. When you begin to view time as a currency, you start asking better questions. Is this worth the hours it will cost me? Is this worth delaying my goals? Is this an investment or an expense? This alone can transform your life. To guard your time, you also have to guard your calendar. A calendar is not just a place to store appointments. It is a declaration of priorities. If your calendar is full of tasks that do not matter, you have already lost. If your calendar is empty because everything is handled reactively, you have also lost. Wealthy thinkers do not let other people fill their schedules for them. They proactively carve out time for building, thinking, learning, and strategizing. They treat those blocks of time as sacred, not flexible. Guarding your time requires saying no more often, and not polite, maybe later types of no's, real no's, clear no's, direct no's. You cannot protect time without disappointing some people. You cannot pursue something meaningful or trying to satisfy everyone. Billionaire thinkers know that priorities require sacrifice. You sacrifice approval for progress. You sacrifice social ease for focused work. People who avoid discomfort lose their time to other people's agendas. But guarding your time goes beyond scheduling and boundaries. It also applies to mental bandwidth. Mental bandwidth is the processing power you have available for solving problems, learning, and creativity. Terrible uses of mental bandwidth include worrying about things you cannot control, arguing about trivial topics, trying to impress people who do not matter, rehashing old stories, and reliving old conflicts. All of those drain cognitive resources that could have been allocated to building something meaningful. Billionaire thinkers do not waste mental energy on low-value thinking. They keep their minds focused on what they can control, what they can improve, and what they can build. There is a powerful shift that happens when you guard your time. Your standards rise. You stop tolerating lateness, disorganization, chaos, drama, and inefficiency. You stop agreeing to endless small commitments. You stop being available by default. You begin treating your time with the same seriousness you treat your health or your finances, and that seriousness compounds. Others notice. Some resist. Some adjust. And eventually, your environment calibrates to your expectations. But here is an important part. Guarding your time is not just about cutting. It is also about optimizing. It is about designing life around what produces the greatest return. Sometimes that means batching tasks. Sometimes that means outsourcing small tasks so you can focus on high-impact work. Sometimes it means buying convenience to reclaim your schedule. Sometimes it means delegating, automating, or hiring. You are not trying to be busy, you are trying to be effective. And effectiveness requires concentration, focus, depth. Billionaire thinkers do not try to juggle 10 important things at once. They blocked time for deep work. They eliminate interruptions. They do not answer every notification, email, or message the moment it appears. They choose windows of communication rather than constant availability. Constant availability is the enemy of high-level thinking. If your attention is always fragmented, your results will always be average. Guard your time and your results will change. Guard your attention and your identity will change. Guard your calendar and your future will change. When you realize time is wealth, you begin investing it instead of spending it. And when you invest time into learning, building, connecting, and creating, life compounds in ways that feel unfair to those who never learned how to protect their most valuable asset. Chapter 9. Leverage systems, not sweat. Multiplying your impact. If you study how billionaires build, you will notice something very important. They do not rely on effort alone. They do not rely on hustle alone. They do not rely on willpower alone. Those things matter, but they are not enough. Sweat by itself does not scale. Hard work is admirable, but it has a ceiling. Systems do not. Systems allow you to multiply effort beyond what your body and your time can produce, and that multiplication is where disproportionate wealth is created. A system is simply a repeatable method that delivers a consistent result with less human effort each time it runs. It is the opposite of improvisation. It is the opposite of grinding through the same work day after day. Think about how most people operate. Every day they wake up, start from zero, push, grind, and collapse. Next day, same process. Nothing carries over. Nothing compounds. Billionaire thinkers design their life so that the effort from yesterday makes today easier, not identical. One of the biggest mistakes people make is treating their life like a series of tasks instead of a set of systems. Tasks solve the immediate. Systems solve the ongoing. Tasks make you useful. Systems make you powerful. When you build systems, you detach output from constant manual input. That is leverage. And leverage is how you get more done in less time, without burning out or falling apart. There are different forms of leverage. There is technological leverage, using tools, software, automation, and infrastructure to replace human hours. There is financial leverage, using capital to accelerate growth. There is network leverage, using relationships, teams, and partnerships to increase reach. And there is knowledge leverage, using expertise to make better decisions faster. Wealthy combine these forms so that each hour of their life produces more than 1 hour of results. But systems do not only exist in companies, they exist in personal lives, too. Your habits are systems, your routines are systems, your decision frameworks are systems, your learning process is a system. You already have systems. The question is whether they serve you or sabotage you. If you procrastinate often, that is a system. If you check your phone first thing every morning, that is a system. If you delay important projects until the last minute, that is a system. The problem is that most systems form accidentally and instead of intentionally. Here is where billionaire thinking differs from everyone else. They build systems deliberately. They document processes. They refine workflows. They improve the environment around their goals. They remove friction. They simplify choices. They design life around making the right actions easier and the wrong actions harder. If the path matters, they engineer it so the path works in their favor. When you rely only on sweat, you guarantee that progress stops the moment you stop. If you get sick, progress halts. If you take a vacation, progress halts. If you lose motivation, progress halts. But when systems are running, progress continues even when you are not actively pushing. A system is a silent worker. It does not need enthusiasm. It does not need inspiration. It just runs. People often misunderstand leverage because they think it is about laziness or avoidance. It is not. Leverage is respect for time. It is understanding the difference between labor and multiplication. It is asking a simple but transformative question. How can this create value even when I am not directly touching it? That question forces you into better decisions. It pushes you toward tools instead of tension, toward processes instead of panic, toward structure instead of chaos. There is also a psychological component to systems. They reduce decision fatigue. When everything is a choice, life becomes mentally exhausting. Systems reduce choices. They remove uncertainty. They create a predictable flow. Think about how athletes train. They do not ask themselves each morning if they should practice. They have a system. The decision is made once and the execution repeats. That repetition is what allows mastery to emerge. The same applies to wealth creation. People who build wealth do not constantly debate to invest their time, money, or focus. They have frameworks. They have filters. They have rules. Those rules prevent emotional decision-making and protect long-term compounding. Emotion ruins more financial opportunities than intelligence ever creates. Systems protect you from your own impulses. Building systems also requires letting go of control. That is difficult. Many people want to do everything themselves because they struggle to trust others, but control limits scale. If everything depends on you, everything is limited by you. Billionaire thinkers delegate, automate, outsource, and partner, not because they are lazy, but because they understand their highest value role. Their goal is not to be busy, it is to be effective. And here is the final truth. Systems reward patience. You rarely see instant payoff. Sometimes it feels like extra work at the beginning. Documenting a process takes longer than doing it once. Setting up automation takes longer than doing the task manually. Training someone takes longer than handling it yourself, but systems pay you back later. And when they pay you back, they pay for a long time. Sweat creates progress. Systems create freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom of focus. And when you combine both, when you are willing to sweat to build the system and patient enough to let it scale, you unlock a level of productivity and wealth that hustle alone could never produce. This is how billionaires build, not by working harder than everyone else, but by building systems that keep working even when they do not. Chapter 10. Spend less than you earn. Even when you earn more. The anti-lifestyle inflation strategy. There is a phase in wealth building where you have to survive, and a later phase where you have to behave. Most people never master the second one. They start earning more and immediately start spending more. They upgrade lifestyle. They upgrade status. They upgrade convenience. And without realizing it, they upgrade their dependency in money. The trap is not poverty. The trap is lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation keeps people looking successful and feeling broke. Billionaire thinkers avoid that trap by design. One of the most powerful wealth principles is embarrassingly simple. Spend less than you earn. It sounds basic, almost too basic to matter. Yet, it is the foundation for every fortune ever built. There is no wealth without margin. Margin is the space between income and expenses. Margin creates savings. Savings create capital. Capital creates investments. And investments create freedom. That sequence is non-negotiable. You cannot shortcut it. You cannot hack it. You must respect the order. Here is what makes billionaire thinking different. They keep the margin even when income grows. They do not fall for the "I deserve it" mentality. They do not use money as validation. They do not treat income as an excuse for consumption. When their income increases, their lifestyle does not. They act broke. They maintain humility. They stay careful, disciplined, and observant. They let money accumulate instead of evaporate. Income without discipline is set up for disappointment. There are doctors, lawyers, executives, and high-earning professionals who make 6 or 7 figures a year, yet live paycheck to paycheck. Because their spending always expands to match their earnings. Earning more does not solve spending problems, it amplifies them. That is why so many people feel exhausted by money, even when they make a lot of it. They are financially busy, but financially fragile. People hate hearing about frugality because they associate it with deprivation. But frugality is not about deprivation. It is about control. It is about buying options. It is about buying time. It is about buying the ability to walk away from bad deals, bad jobs, and bad environments. When you spend everything you make, you lose negotiation power. When you keep a margin, you gain leverage. Wealthy thinkers do not save for emergencies, they save for opportunities. Emergencies drain you, opportunities elevate you, but you only recognize the difference when you have capital to deploy. Another reason billionaire thinkers act broke is psychological. The moment you start signaling wealth through cars, clothes, gadgets, or lifestyle, you attract unnecessary attention and expectations. You attract judgment. You attract comparison. You attract the pressure to maintain an image. That pressure becomes financial gravity. It pulls you down even as you try to rise. The truly wealthy avoid that gravity by being understated. They let their money work, not their ego. Let us talk about the ego piece for a moment. The ego wants proof. It wants validation. It wants visible evidence that you are doing better. And the fastest way to produce visible evidence is to spend. It is easy to buy a nicer car. 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 It is easy to travel more, and the world will applaud you for it. But applause is not wealth. Applause is consumption. The ego wants applause. The investor wants freedom. Pick one. Billionaire thinkers also understand cycles. There will be seasons of abundance and seasons of scarcity. If you spend like the good season never ends, the bad season becomes catastrophic. If you spend modestly during the good season, the bad season becomes manageable and sometimes even profitable. Many fortunes were built during downturns, simply because the wealthy had capital when others were desperate. Acting broke during the good times gives you that advantage. There is also a creativity benefit to acting broke. When you limit unnecessary spending, you become resourceful. You explore alternative strategies. You negotiate. You improvise. You build instead of buy. Creativity is a muscle that weakens when convenience is overused. Billionaire thinkers preserve that muscle by not flooding their life with ease prematurely. But discipline does not mean you never enjoy anything. It means you enjoy things with intention instead of impulse. It means you distinguish between consumption that enhances life and consumption that distracts from life. It means you delay indulgence until indulgence does not cost you anything emotionally or financially. The difference between "I want it now" and "I want it later" is wealth. And here is the important truth. No one is impressed by your spending, except people who are also trapped by spending. People with real wealth admire restraint, not excess. They admire durability, not flash. They admire those who build quietly, not those who perform loudly. When you truly internalize that, spending loses its power over you. So yes, spend less than you earn. But more importantly, continue spending less than you earn, even as that income increases. That discipline is how wealth escapes gravity. It is how capital accumulates. It is how opportunity becomes accessible. And it is how you avoid the exhausting cycle of looking rich while staying broke. Act broke long enough, and eventually you will not have to act anymore. The wealth will be real, the freedom will be real, and the life will be yours, not rented from lifestyle inflation. Chapter 11. Beat on asymmetric opportunities. Strategic risk taking. If you want to think like a billionaire, you have to change how you evaluate risk. Most people evaluate risk through fear. Billionaire thinkers evaluate risk through math, and the math they pay attention to is asymmetric math. Small downside, big upside. They do not chase opportunities where the reward equals the risk. They chase opportunities where the reward dramatically outweighs the risk. That's the game. That is the secret. That is how fortunes are built, without gambling everything away. An asymmetric opportunity is one where you can lose a little but potentially gain a lot. In other words, small bets with disproportionate upside. That could look like investing early in a new idea, trying a side business with low starting cost, learning a skill that opens high-value doors, or making introductions that cost nothing but create future advantage. Asymmetric thinking asks a simple question: what is the upside? And what does it really cost me to try? Most people never ask that question. They only ask, what if it does not work? So they miss opportunities that would have changed their life. We often imagine billionaires as gigantic risk-takers, but in reality, they are careful risk managers. They avoid symmetrical risk, where losing hurts as much as winning helps. If the downside is catastrophic, they walk away. They do not risk the foundations. They risk the excess. They risk the optional. That is why they appear bold without being reckless. They are not smarter than everyone else. They are just more selective about the games they choose to play. There is another layer to asymmetric opportunities: timing. If you are early to a trend, early to an industry, early to a skill, early to a network, the upside multiplies. Late adopters miss that advantage, but here is the twist. You cannot benefit from early opportunities if you require certainty. Certainty only appears when the upside is already priced in. By the time everyone agrees it is a good idea, the reward has already been distributed. Billionaire thinkers are comfortable, acting before validation arrives. But asymmetric thinking is not only about money, it applies to knowledge. One book can change the way you make decisions for the rest of your life. Massive upside. One conversation with the right person can redirect your career. Massive upside. One new habit can increase your energy, discipline, or confidence for decades. Massive upside. And what is the downside? A few hours, a little discomfort, a little effort. That is asymmetric. The reason most people miss these opportunities because they have the wrong definition of cost. They think cost is money. But cost also includes time, attention, energy, and reputation. And in many asymmetric situations, the monetary cost is small, but the psychological cost feels large. Reaching out to a mentor costs nothing in money, but it costs you vulnerability. Starting a side project costs little money, but it costs you patience. Learning a skill costs no dollars, but it costs you consistency. Many people reject asymmetric upside because they dislike the discomfort more than they value the reward. Another key piece of asymmetric thinking is portfolio behavior. Billionaires do not rely on one bet. They place many small bets across many possibilities, knowing that some will fail, some will break even, and a few will outperform everything else. Those few are the ones that change their life. Failure is expected. Failure is priced in. They do not need to be right all the time. They just need to be right big once in a while. In contrast, most people place one big emotional bet on a single path. If it fails, they collapse. Their strategy is fragile. They need every decision to work perfectly. Billionaire thinking is the opposite, robust and diversified. The downside is controlled. The upside is encouraged. This is why asymmetric thinkers are not paralyzed by uncertainty. Uncertainty is where the payoff hides. There is also a wealth of asymmetric opportunity hiding in modern times. The cost of creating, building, and experimenting has collapsed. You can build brands, products, media, skills, and networks without needing corporate permission or gatekeeper approval. These did not exist a few decades ago. The upside is global. Downside is minimal, yet most people still behave as if failure is fatal. They underestimate how cheap experimentation has become. To apply asymmetric thinking, you must adopt a different question set. Instead of, "What if it does not work?" ask, "What if it does?" Instead of, "How do I avoid failure?" ask, "What failure can I afford?" Instead of, "How do I get guaranteed results?" ask, "How do I give myself multiple chances to win?" These questions open doors that fear keeps shut. And finally, asymmetric thinking requires identity flexibility. You must be willing to try things you are not good at yet. You must be willing to learn in public, fail in private, and attempt without applause. You must be willing to experiment with no guarantee of praise. That is uncomfortable. That is what stops most people. But the people who push through discomfort get access to upside that comfort will never offer. Acting on asymmetric opportunities doesn't mean chasing every idea. It means recognizing the few ideas that are worth more than they cost, acting on them repeatedly, and letting time and compounding do the heavy lifting. That is how billionaires think. Not with reckless risk, but with strategic asymmetry. Chapter 12. Build relationships that compound. Your millionaire inner circle. There is a point in life where hard work alone stops moving the needle. You can be talented, disciplined, intelligent, and relentless, but if you are isolated, your ceiling arrives fast. Billionaire thinkers understand something essential. Relationships are leverage. The right relationships expand your reach, accelerate your learning, and multiply your opportunities. The wrong relationships drain time, dilute focus, and trap you in cycles that never scale. Or the wealthy do not network to collect contacts. They build alliances that compound over time. Compounding in relationships works the same way compounding works in finance. Small interactions consistently invested grow into trust. Trust grows into collaboration. Collaboration grows into opportunity. And opportunity grows into wealth. Not always financial wealth, but definitely strategic wealth. Every major career breakthrough you have ever seen had a relational component. Someone opened a door. Someone made an introduction. Someone vouched for someone. Someone taught 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 someone. But compounding only begins when relationships have time to mature. Most people approach relationships with impatience. They want instant favors, instant access, instant benefits. They treat people like vending machines. Insert small talk. Expect a payout. That is not how this works. The wealthy play a long game with people. They invest without immediate expectation. They lead with value before asking for value in return. They build reputational equity. Reputational equity is a hidden form of capital. It means that when your name comes up in a room you are not in, people speak well of you. They describe you as reliable, competent, generous, helpful, consistent. That reputation travels further than any resume ever could. In powerful rooms, reputational equity decides who gets introduced, who gets invited, and who gets trusted. Billionaire thinkers protect their reputation because they know trust multiplies faster than money. Building relationships that compound requires intention. First, you have to choose the environments you enter. Proximity is power. If you surround yourself with people who are stagnant, complacent, and comfortable, you eventually adopt their standards. But if you surround yourself with builders, learners, creator, and ambitious minds, their momentum pulls you forward. Human beings adapt to the standards of their peers. If you raise the standards of the people around you, you automatically raise your own. Second, billionaire thinkers do not seek relationships based on status. They seek relationships based on alignment of values, alignment of goals, alignment of ambition. Alignment does not mean identical paths. It means shared direction. A high performer in one domain can uplift a high performer in another domain, even if their industries do not overlap. What matters is shared seriousness toward growth. Third, they understand contribution. Relationships that compound are built through contribution, not consumption. When you enter relationships with the mindset of, how can I help? Instead of, what can I get? You differentiate yourself quickly. Most people never ask how they can contribute. They ask how they can benefit. But contribution creates goodwill, and goodwill creates compounding. Contribution can take different forms. Sometimes it is knowledge, sharing a resource, a book, a strategy, or an experience. Sometimes it is connection, making introductions that create mutual benefit. Sometimes it is encouragement, reminding someone of their strengths. Sometimes it is collaboration, building something together. The key is that contribution plants seeds that can sprout later in surprising ways. Fourth, billionaire thinkers avoid relational debt, the habit of taking more than you give. Relational debt makes people feel used, not valued. And once someone feels used, the compound interest of trust collapses. The wealthy play clean relationship games. They do not exploit. They do not manipulate. They do not take shortcuts through people. Their compounding depends on integrity. Another important element of compounding relationships is filtering. Not every relationship should be nurtured. Some relationships are anchors, disguised as friendships. Some relationships reward your old identity, not your new one. Some relationships are based on proximity, not alignment. And some relationships feel good but go nowhere. You have to develop the discernment to know who belongs in your future and who belongs in your past. And here is the paradox. As you grow, your circle shrinks before it expands. You shed people who resist growth before you attract those who accelerate it. That shrinking period feels lonely, but loneliness during transition is not failure, it is preparation. The wrong circle has to exit before the right circle can enter. Finally, billionaire thinkers understand the power of invisible rooms. The most important conversations about your future will be held in rooms you are not present in. Invitations are extended in those rooms. Deals are conceived in those rooms. Decisions are influenced in those rooms. Your behavior today determines what is said about you in those rooms. Years from now, every interaction contributes to that future reputation. Networking is transactional. Compounding relationships are transformational. Networking is collecting people. Compounding relationships is growing with people. Networking is short-term. Compounding is long-term. When you play the compounding game, you do not just accumulate contacts, you accumulate allies. If you want to think like a billionaire, treat people as long-term investments. Protect your reputation. Contribute first. Align with builders. Filter wisely. And remember, money compounds fastest in the hands of those whose relationships compound even faster. Chapter 13. Failure is tuition, not defeat. The unshakable mind. Let us get real. You are afraid of failing. You avoid risks. You stay in your comfort zone. And that is exactly why you're not rich. Not because the world is unfair. Not because you are unlucky. But because you are playing scared. Here is the truth that separates billionaires from the rest. Failure is tuition, not defeat. Every billionaire you admire, they paid their education in losses, mistakes, and setbacks, and they did it on purpose. Pay the price, earn the lesson, repeat. That is the key. Take Steve Jobs. He was fired from Apple, the very company he founded. Most people would quit, cry, or disappear. Most people would let that define them. Jobs did not. He learned, he observed, he experimented. He started Pixar, he returned to Apple, and he revolutionized the world twice over. He treated failure like tuition. He did not treat it like punishment. That is the difference. Or look at Ray Dalio, the hedge fund legend, lost $1 billion early in his career. It would have broken him. It would have ended his ambitions. Instead, he documented every mistake. He studied them. He codified principles that would later make him one of the richest investors alive. Failure is not final. It is feedback. It is data. It is the fastest way to learn. If you are willing to pay attention, you have a choice. Let mistakes destroy you, or let them educate you. Most people fear failure because they equate it with identity. I am a failure, they say. No, you are not your mistakes. You are your response to them. Billionaires do not identify with loss. They identify with mastery. Failure is a checkpoint, not a verdict. Say it with me. Failure is tuition, not defeat. Let us break down why failure is the ultimate accelerator. It exposes gaps. Every failure shows you where you are weak, unprepared, or unaware. Ignore it, and you repeat it. Learn from it, and you level up faster than any success ever could. It builds resilience. Pain is temporary. Lessons are permanent. When you experience loss and survive, your mental toughness compounds. That is the difference between someone who collapses at obstacles and someone who scales mountains. It forces innovation. Mistakes demand creativity. Setbacks push you to find a better solution. Billion-dollar breakthroughs are often born from billion-dollar failures. Here is the brutal pattern. You will fail. You will feel shame. You will doubt yourself. Then you have a choice. You can quit, or you can study the loss. You can analyze what went wrong. You can build systems to prevent it next time. You can execute with more wisdom than before. That is paying tuition. That is earning your lesson. Think about the entrepreneurs you admire. They are not lucky. They are not immune. They are persistent students of reality. When Elon Musk's rockets exploded, he did not quit. He iterated, tested, and improved. Every failure made the next launch more likely to succeed. Every setback is a test. Every mistake is a lesson. Every loss is tuition for mastery. Here is what most people get wrong. They expect success without paying the price. They want wealth without risk. They want recognition without struggle. That is fantasy. That is why most fail. Billionaires understand you cannot shortcut education. You cannot escape mistakes. You cannot avoid losses. You can only embrace them, learn from them, and use them. Let me give you a practical roadmap. First, stop fearing failure. Rename it. Call it feedback. Call it tuition. Every mistake is a deposit in your experience bank. Second, analyze ruthlessly. Do not blame others. Do not make excuses. Write down exactly what went wrong. Write down what you control. Write down what you will do differently next time. Third, apply the lesson immediately. Failure is wasted if you repeat it. The faster you implement the insight, the faster you grow. Fourth, repeat consistently. The most successful people fail faster than the average person. They fail more often because they take more action and they learn more quickly. Let us be clear. You will feel pain. You will feel embarrassment. You will feel doubt. Good. That means you are stretching. That means you are moving. That means you are learning. Comfort is the enemy of growth. Failure is the gateway. Discomfort is the tuition room. Here is a mindset anchor for you. When you fail, say, "This is tuition. I am investing in my future." Say, "I will extract every lesson. I will grow." Say, "I will repeat, refine, and rise." Repeat it until it becomes instinct. Because the difference between the broke and the billionaire is not luck, it is persistence through failure. A billionaire's secret is not genius. It is paying attention while failing. It is seeing every loss as data. It is treating every setback as a lesson plan. You have a choice. Let setbacks define you, or let them educate you. Pay the price. Earn the lesson. Repeat. That is how empires are built. That is how billionaires think. That is how winners dominate. Here is your challenge. Identify one recent failure in your life. Do not hide from it. Write down the lessons. Extract actionable steps. Apply them relentlessly. Every mistake can either bankrupt you or build you. You mastered knowledge in the last chapter. You mastered discipline in the chapter before. Now you must master failure, because without it, everything else is fragile. Pay the price. Earn the lesson. Repeat. You have survived fear. You have built discipline. And you have learned the game. Now it is time to make the decisions that convert all your lessons into wealth. Chapter 14. Think value, not vanity. The enduring pursuit. When people start earning or achieving, the temptation to chase vanity becomes very strong. Vanity wants to be seen, admired, and applauded. Value wants to be useful, effective, and enduring. Billionaire thinkers choose value. They build their life around what creates value, not what signals status. And that single distinction separates those who quietly accumulate wealth from those who loudly accumulate expenses. Vanity is about impressing others. Value is about improving others or improving a system, a product, a process, or a skill. Vanity asks, "How can I look successful?" Value asks, "How can I make something better?" You can fake vanity. You cannot fake value. Vanity fades quickly. Value compounds quietly. And the marketplace over the long horizon always rewards value. Thinking in terms of value changes how you behave. When you focus on value, you become a learner. You become a builder. You become someone who seeks to understand how things work instead of merely how things appear. When you focus on vanity, you become a performer. You become a consumer. You start optimizing for image instead of capability. The funny thing is, vanity feels satisfying in the short term, while value feels slow. But fast satisfaction is rarely durable, and durable wealth is rarely fast. Consider the difference between buying an expensive watch to impress strangers versus investing that same money into a skill that could multiply your income for the next 20 years. The watch signals something superficial. The skill produces something substantial. Only one of them will matter a decade from now, and it will not be the watch. But millions of people choose the watch because validation is addictive and quiet growth is boring. Vanity thrives on comparison, comparing houses, cars, salaries, followers, addresses, vacations, and brands. Value thrives on contribution. How much you learned, how much you improved, how much you built, and how much you helped. One is external, one is internal. When your life is guided by external comparisons, you become trapped. There will always be someone with more status, more symbols, more applause. There is no finish line. But when you live by internal contribution, the game becomes winnable. Growth becomes fulfilling. Progress becomes measurable. Billionaire thinkers do not spend their time trying to impress those who have no influence over their destiny. They do not purchase validation from strangers. They do not waste their energy proving their worth. They invest their energy improving their worth. That is the difference between vanity and value. Vanity wants recognition without results. Value wants results even without recognition. Vanity also hides insecurity. It tries to signal strength instead of building it. It tries to signal wealth instead of accumulating it. It tries to signal confidence instead of developing it. Vanity is a costume. Value is character. And character is what remains when the costume is removed. Now let us talk about markets. The marketplace, whether in business, careers, or entrepreneurship, pays for value, not for status, not for aesthetics, not for ego. It pays for solutions, competence, reliability, innovation, and results. If you can do something others cannot, or if you can do it better, faster, or cheaper, you will be paid. If you cannot, you will not, regardless of how impressive you appear. This is why billionaire thinkers obsess over increasing their value rather than increasing their vanity. Value can take many forms. It can be technical skill. It can be judgment. It can be creativity. It can be leadership. It can be decision-making. It can be emotional intelligence. It can be reputation. It can be courage. But it always requires one thing: investment. You cannot manifest value. You cannot posture value. You must build it. Vanity feels urgent. Value feels patient. Vanity is hungry for attention. Value is hungry for mastery. Vanity wants an audience. Value wants an edge. And if you choose value consistently enough, eventually you get both the edge and the audience. Vanity, on the other hand, may get you the audience, but not the edge. And without the edge, the audience eventually leaves. The pursuit of value also changes how you purchase. When you think in vanity, you buy to display. When you think in value, you buy to enhance. You start asking better questions. Does this tool make me more effective? Does this course increase my earning power? Does this hire free up my time? Does this book improve my thinking? Purchases become investments instead of distractions. And investments are what create wealth. As you rise, you will notice that vanity is loud, while value is quiet. The loudness is the trap. The quietness is the advantage. People showing off are often signaling the absence of something. People building quietly are usually accumulating something. Wealthy learn early that the less you need to signal, the stronger you actually are. Thinking in value instead of vanity is not just a financial principle, it is an identity principle. It shapes who you become. It shapes how you spend your days. It shapes how you make decisions under pressure. And over years, those decisions compound. They compound into competence. They compound into trust. They compound into opportunities that vanity will never access. If you choose value, you might be underestimated in the beginning, but if you choose vanity, you will be exposed in the end. The path of value demands humility early and rewards you later. The path of vanity rewards you early and humbles you later. Choose wisely. Chapter 15. Create multiple engines of cash flow beyond single dependency. There is a point on the path to wealth where earning more from a single source stops being enough. You can have a great job, a great business, or great skill, but if your income depends on one engine, you are one disruption away from starting over. Billionaire thinkers do not treat income as a single stream. They treat it as an ecosystem. They build multiple engines of cash flow, some active, some passive, some slow, some fast, some foundational, some opportunistic. This is how they make their wealth durable instead of fragile. Most people are taught to chase a better job, not a better system of income. They are taught to depend on salary instead of depend on strategy. Salary feels safe because it is predictable, but it is also vulnerable because it is singular. One decision from a boss, one downturn in the industry, one shift in demand, and the engine stalls. Billionaire thinkers remove this vulnerability by building redundancy into their financial life. They do not rely on a single pillar. They build a structure supported by many. There are three major types of income engines: earned income, leveraged income, and passive income. Earned income comes from your time. You perform a task and get paid. This is where most people live. It is limited by hours, energy, and availability. Leveraged income comes from systems. You set up a process, a product, or a platform, and it scales without your constant effort. Passive income comes from assets, investments, rentals, royalties, dividends, equity, or digital property that pay you even when you are asleep. Billionaire thinkers aim to move from earned, leveraged, to passive over time. But diversification does not mean doing everything at once. It does not mean chasing 10 side projects or building a dozen businesses overnight. It means that after one engine is stable, you begin building the next. It means that while one income stream pays the bills, another is being developed to pay for the future. It means patience. It means sequencing. Most people fail not because they do not diversify, but because they diversify too early, before they have mastery in anything. Billionaire thinkers concentrate first, then expand. Another advantage of multiple income engines is compounding. When you have only one stream, all surplus income from that stream often gets consumed. But when you have multiple streams, one can fund another. For example, earned income can fund investments. Investments can fund dividends. Dividends can fund new ventures. New ventures can fund assets. Assets can fund freedom. The engine feeds the ecosystem, and the ecosystem feeds your independence. There is also a psychological shift that happens when you begin building multiple streams. You stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an owner. Owners build assets. Owners think long-term. Owners expect to build something once and get paid repeatedly. That shift alone can change your financial trajectory because owners prioritize activities with exponential potential instead of linear exchange. But let us address something practical. Not every stream is financial at first. Some streams start as skills. Some streams start as relationships. Some streams start as expertise. Skills can be monetized. Relationships can generate opportunities. Expertise can attract demand. Billionaire thinkers treat these as pre-income assets, assets that do not pay immediately, but become the foundation for future engines. The average person quits prematurely because they expect instant money. Builders persist because they understand sequencing. Another layer to this idea is asymmetric payoff. Many side engines do not need to make a fortune to matter. Even a small additional income stream can change everything. It provides breathing room. It provides optionality. It provides stability. It reduces desperation. Desperation kills negotiation power. When you have one engine, you will often say yes to things you should not, because you cannot afford to say no. With multiple engines, you negotiate from strength instead of fear. We should also discuss the role of technology. Digital infrastructure has made building new income engines cheaper than ever. You can create products without a factory. You can sell services without an office. You can distribute content without a publisher. You can build an audience without a media company. Nice. You can invest without a financial advisor. If you do not take advantage of this era, someone else will. But multiple income streams require something else: patience without visibility. When you are building a second or third engine, it often does not pay immediately. There are months where it feels pointless. There are months where progress is invisible. This is the point where most people abandon the engine and return to the comfort of their primary income. Billionaire thinkers do not abandon the build phase just because the payoff is not instant. They know a slow engine today can become a powerful engine tomorrow. Finally, multiple income engines were not designed for luxury. They were designed for freedom. Freedom from dependency, freedom from fear, freedom from pressure, and freedom from scarcity. Money is not the ultimate goal. Independence is. When you build income that arrives from multiple directions on multiple timelines, through multiple mechanisms, you stop worrying about survival and start thinking about strategy. You move from playing defense to playing offense, and offense is where wealth compounds. If you want to think like a billionaire, do not chase a higher paycheck, build a stronger ecosystem. The engines you build outside your main income are the engines that eventually set you free. Chapter 16. Scale. What works. Kill. What was not. Strategic. Focus. There comes a point in every pursuit where effort alone stops being the bottleneck and decision-making becomes the true differentiator. The average person believes success is about doing more tasks, more projects, more experimentation. Billionaire thinkers know success is about doing less, but doing it better. They scale what works, and they ruthlessly kill what does not. They do not drag dead weight across years of their life, hoping it magically becomes profitable, meaningful, or fulfilling. They analyze, they measure, they adjust, and they move. Scaling what works sounds obvious, yet very few people do it. When something goes well, most people celebrate briefly and then chase something new. They let boredom, ego, or novelty bias distract them from exploiting the opportunity already in their hands. Billionaire thinkers behave differently. When something works, they pour gasoline on it, they invest in it, they refine it, they optimize it, they delegate surrounding tasks. They find leverage points. They ask, how can this go bigger, faster, wider, deeper? Scaling is the process of letting success compound. If one product sells, launch more versions. If one skill earns money, package it into different forms. If one connection leads to an opportunity, nurture that relationship into multiple opportunities. Scaling is about multiplying what already shows promise instead of forever searching for brand new ideas. But scaling is only half the formula. The other half is killing what does not work, successively, cleanly, and early enough to protect resources. This is where most people struggle. because killing something that is not working feels like admitting defeat. It feels like wasted time, wasted money, wasted effort. So they hold on, they justify, they rationalize. They tell themselves it just needs a little more time, or a little more luck, or a little more belief. Months turn into years, and the sunk cost fallacy traps them in mediocrity. Billionaire thinkers escape this trap by ignoring sunk costs and focusing on future return. To kill what does not work, you must separate identity from strategy. 4. If you tie your identity to a business, a project, a degree, a career, or a path, you will defend it long after it stops serving you. The wealthy do not marry a single strategy. They marry the mission. Strategies are tools, not identities. When a tool stops working, they drop it and pick another. That agility gives them unfair advantage in fast-changing environments. Another important distinction: killing what does not work does not mean quitting at the first sign of difficulty. Billionaire thinkers can tell the difference between friction and failure. Friction means hard but meaningful. Failure means unviable. One requires endurance, the other requires decision-making. Knowing the difference is one of the most valuable entrepreneurial instincts you can build. The question becomes, how do you know when to scale and when to kill? You measure, you observe feedback, you study results, you track inputs and outputs, you watch patterns, you consult people with distance who can see what your bias blinds you to. Wealthy thinkers make decisions based on performance, not emotion. Here is a simple principle. If something shows positive asymmetry, small input, large output, scale it. If something shows negative asymmetry, large input, small output, kill it. The marketplace rewards this logic in every domain. Scale strengths, retire weaknesses, double down on winners, cut losers. If a product sells with no marketing, scale it. If a marketing strategy converts well, scale it. If a relationship produces opportunities, nurture it. If a platform rewards your content, post more. If a skill pays you well, sharpen it further. Most people do the opposite. They keep trying to fix what does not work because they are emotionally attached to the investment. They try to convince the world to want something the world does not want. But the market does not care about how hard you worked. It does not care about how much you believe. It cares about demand, value, and alignment. Scaling also requires operational changes. When something begins to work, new constraints appear. You need processes, delegation, automation, or outsourcing. You need to remove bottlenecks. You need to define standards. You need to focus on leverage instead of brute force. Billionaire thinkers do not scale chaos. They scale order. And here is a critical nuance. Scaling is not just for business. It applies to life. If a habit improves your energy, scale it. If a mentor elevates your thinking, spend more time with them. If a morning routine increases focus, protect it. If a boundary creates peace, reinforce it. Life compounds when you scale what elevates you and eliminate what drains you. Killing what does not work also applies to identity layers. If a version of yourself is no longer compatible with the life you want, who let that version die? Growth requires shedding. People who refuse to shed stay stuck in outdated identities that limit their options. Billionaire thinkers reinvent deliberately, not impulsively, not reactively, but strategically. Finally, scaling and killing are not one-time actions. They are continuous. The world evolves. Markets evolve. Technology evolves. You evolve. What works today might not work tomorrow. Chapter 17. Play the invisible game. Discipline the undetected. There are two games happening in life at all times: the visible game and the invisible game. The visible game is what everyone talks about: titles, status, followers, awards, public achievements, visible progress, and obvious wins. The invisible game is everything underneath: patience, discipline, restraint, quiet preparation, accumulated knowledge, long-term strategy, and decisions made when no one is watching. Billionaire thinkers win not because they dominate the visible game, but because they master the invisible one. The invisible game begins with patience. While most people demand fast validation, billionaire thinkers allow time to work in their favor. They do not rush to announce every idea. They do not broadcast every move. They do not seek applause during the build phase. They understand that silence during development gives them freedom to experiment without being judged prematurely. When you keep your early moves invisible, you protect your momentum from outside influence. You are less likely to quit when you are not being watched. Another part of the invisible game is restraint. Restraint is the ability to not react impulsively, to not chase every shiny distraction, to not get pulled into emotional battles, to not argue for the sake of ego, and to not waste time proving yourself to people who do not matter. Restraint looks passive on the surface, but it is incredibly strategic. It is the skill of choosing your battles and protecting your energy. In many cases, victory goes not to the loudest, but to the most self-controlled. Then there is strategic silence. Silence is underrated because the world is noisy. Everyone is broadcasting, signaling, posting, and performing, but the more you talk, the more information you give away. And in competitive arenas, business, negotiation, relationships, or career, information is leverage. Billionaire thinkers know that silence is not emptiness, it is positioning. Sometimes you gain more by not revealing your plans, not reacting publicly, and not explaining your strategy. Silence buys time. Silence hides vulnerabilities. Silence protects intent. Timing is another invisible component. Two people can execute the same strategy with wildly different outcomes, depending on timing. Billionaire thinkers are patient enough to wait for the window when the market is ready, when the people are ready, when the opportunity is ripe. They do not force outcomes. They prepare, they observe, and they strike when conditions are advantageous. The average person is either too early because they are impatient, or too late because they waited for certainty. The wealthy accept uncertainty, but refuse impatience. The invisible game also includes information. While many play based on opinions, billionaire thinkers play based on knowledge, data, patterns, and history. They study what others ignore. They connect dots others never see. They understand how industries evolve, how incentives shape behavior, how power moves, and how systems break. Information compounds just like money. And the invisible accumulation of understanding is often what separates the one who plays from the one who wins. Another element of the invisible game is reputation. Not the public reputation that vanity chases, but private reputation. Public reputation is how strangers see you. Private reputation is how powerful people speak about you when you are not in the room. Public reputation gets applause. Private reputation gets opportunities. And private reputation is built through integrity, reliability, consistency, and strategic restraint. It grows slowly in the shadows and shows itself only when it matters. The invisible game also rewards emotional regulation. If you can stay calm when others panic, if you can stay level when others brag, if you can stay focused when others are distracted, you gain an unfair advantage. Emotional maturity is a form of leverage. It prevents burnout. It prevents costly mistakes. It prevents self-sabotage. The people who crumble under pressure usually lose, not because they lack talent, but because they lacked composure. Another misunderstood aspect is long-term thinking. Long-term thinking is invisible because the results do not show immediately. It feels unproductive in the beginning. You read books now to make better decisions years later. You build relationships now to unlock opportunities years later. You develop skills now to create leverage years later. The visible world rewards short-term performance. The invisible world rewards long-term compounding. There is also the non-obvious truth that most breakthroughs happen privately before they happen publicly. Confidence is built privately. Creativity is developed privately. Strategy is refined privately. When the results finally appear, people assume they happened overnight, but nothing meaningful happens overnight. It only becomes visible overnight. To play the invisible game well, you must also detach from the urge to constantly prove yourself. When you need validation, you rush. When you do not need validation, you build. The invisible game frees you from the noise of comparison and the pressure of performance. You no longer compete for attention. You compete for advantage. And advantage accumulates quietly. And billionaire thinkers finally make a visible move, launching a project, pitching a deal, entering a market, or revealing a solution. It looks effortless because all the effort happened behind the scenes. The invisible game made the visible result look inevitable. Play the visible game alone, and you will burn out competing for attention. Play the invisible game well, and the visible wins take care of themselves. Chapter 18: Constant Evolution, the Learning Machine. We are nearing the culmination for exploration into billionaire thinking. But there is a vital principle we must embrace for true long-term success: constant evolution. The world around us, the economy, technology, societal trends, investment landscapes, isn't a perpetual state of flux. What worked brilliantly yesterday might be obsolete tomorrow. Therefore, to sustain your wealth accumulation journey and maintain an effective billionaire thinking framework, your mindset, strategies, and knowledge base must also constantly evolve. This chapter emphasizes the critical importance of adaptability, lifelong learning, and the willingness to shed outdated beliefs and embrace new paradigms. It is about ensuring your financial thinking remains agile, responsive, and ever-improving. Why is constant evolution so crucial for long-term billionaire thinking and sustained wealth accumulation? Staying relevant in a changing world. Financial markets are dynamic. New investment vehicles emerge. Old ones fade. Consumer preferences shift. Technological disruptions create new industries and dismantle others. A static mindset will inevitably fall behind. Continuous learning allows them to adapt, innovate, and stay ahead of the curve, safeguarding their financial success. Knowledge is competitive advantage. In any field, superior knowledge and understanding provide a significant edge. By constantly acquiring new skills and insights, billionaires can identify opportunities others miss, make more informed decisions, and solve problems more effectively, fueling further wealth creation. Personal growth fuels professional growth. The commitment to lifelong learning is not just about business or finance. Many with the billionaire mindset invest heavily in personal development, leadership skills, communication, emotional intelligence. They understand that as they grow as individuals, their capacity to lead, inspire, and achieve expands. It opens doors to new opportunities. Learning often leads to unexpected connections and new avenues. A new skill learned might spark a new business idea. Knowledge gained in one area might surprisingly apply to another, unlocking unforeseen paths to wealth creation. It prevents complacency. Initial success can sometimes breed complacency. You might think you have figured it out, but the moment you stop learning and adapting, you become vulnerable. Constant evolution is the antidote to this, keeping your billionaire thinking sharp and proactive. Problem solving becomes more effective. The more diverse your knowledge base, the more tools you have in your intellectual toolkit to tackle complex problems. Lifelong learning expands your capacity for creative problem solving, essential for navigating the challenges inherent in maintaining financial success. How do billionaires and those with a similar success mindset engage in lifelong learning? Voracious reading. Many are known for reading extensively: books, articles, industry reports, biographies. They understand the power of learning from the experiences and wisdom of others. Seeking mentorship and networking. They actively seek out mentors and build networks with other knowledgeable individuals, understanding that learning can be accelerated through guidance and shared insights. Attending seminars, workshops, and courses. They invest time and resources in formal and informal education to acquire specific skills or deepen their understanding of critical areas, asking questions and listening intently. A key aspect of learning is being willing to admit what you do not know and being genuinely curious to learn from others, regardless of their status. Learning from failure. They view setbacks not just as unfortunate events, but as invaluable learning experiences, dissecting what went wrong to extract crucial lessons for future wealth creation. Staying curious. Perhaps most importantly, they maintain a deep sense of curiosity about the world, about their industry, about how things work. This innate curiosity is the engine of lifelong learning. This is not just about formal education. It is about cultivating a mindset of perpetual growth, a commitment to being slightly better, slightly more knowledgeable every single day. This dedication to lifelong learning is a powerful driver of sustained financial success and continuous wealth creation. So consider your own learning habits. Are you actively seeking out new knowledge and skills relevant to your financial goals? Are you embracing a billionaire mindset of continuous improvement? Ponder this question. What one new skill, if you were to start learning it today, could significantly accelerate your journey towards wealth creation and greater financial success? Is it understanding a new investment class, learning digital marketing, improving your negotiation skills? Identify it and then make a commitment to start learning. Because learning machines, those dedicated to lifelong learning, are the ones who not only build fortunes, but also sustain and grow them for the long haul. Chapter 19. Legacy is the final currency, building a life that outlasts you. Let us finish with the truth that most people never face. You work, you hustle, you chase money, status, and recognition. And then one day it ends. Life is finite, time is limited, opportunities fade, money fades, influence fades, fame fades, but impact compounds. Impact outlives you. Impact becomes your true currency. That is the key. You cannot take it with you, but you can send it ahead. Billionaires understand this instinctively. Andrew Carnegie did not obsess over building mansions. He built libraries. He invested in education. He made knowledge accessible to millions, a legacy that endures over a century later. Bill Gates is not collecting castles or cars. He invests in cures, vaccines, and global health. He is sending forward solutions that outlive him. That is the ultimate wealth, influence, and value that multiply beyond your lifespan. You have a choice. Build wealth for yourself, or build wealth that shapes the future. Legacy begins with thinking long-term. Most people are trapped in immediate gratification. They chase bonuses, likes, and recognition today. They ignore the compounding effect of contribution over decades. Billionaires think in generations. They design systems, charities, and projects that outlive them. They ask, will this still matter in 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. Your wealth without legacy is temporary. Your impact without planning is fleeting. First, shift from accumulation to contribution. Money alone is a tool. It is not the end. Ask yourself, what problem am I solving that matters beyond me? Every action, every investment, every project should carry a legacy component. Not for ego, not for recognition, but for real impact. Second, design systems that scale your influence. Systems are the ultimate tool for legacy. A charitable organization, a scalable business model, or an educational platform. These are structures that perpetuate your values, knowledge, and impact. Henry Ford's assembly line did not just build cars. It reshaped industry standards. It created jobs for generations. It left an imprint far larger than Ford himself. If your system dies with you, it was never a legacy. Third, focus on knowledge transfer. Teach, mentor, document your insights. Lessons and strategies are more valuable than money alone. If you leave behind knowledge, others will build upon it. Carnegie did not just fund libraries. He funded knowledge for millions. Bill Gates does not just donate. He shares strategy, research, and systems. Knowledge compounds like capital. You have a choice: hoard it or multiply it. Fourth, actively plan your legacy. Most people die without thinking beyond tomorrow. Billionaires plan for centuries. They write foundations, establish trusts, and build institutions. Ask yourself, what will your name represent in 50 years? How will your actions ripple through time? What structures are you creating that continue long after you are gone? Here is the brutal truth. You cannot take your money with you. You cannot carry your influence beyond your life. You cannot preserve fame or comfort in eternity, but you can send impact forward. You can create systems, solutions, and structures that multiply over time. You can plant seeds today that bloom for decades. That is the final currency. Legacy also requires discipline. You cannot think small. You cannot chase fleeting validation. You cannot rely solely on luck or timing. It is about decisions, consistency, and contribution. It is about asking daily, will this matter in a decade? Will this matter in a century? It is about prioritizing long-term significance over short-term comfort. Fifth, align every action with your ultimate impact. Invest in projects that scale your influence. Spend time mentoring people who will outgrow you. Donate strategically, not for recognition, but for results. Build businesses, habits, and systems that continue to operate without you. If your legacy dies with you, your work was incomplete. If wealth evaporates after your lifetime, your life was incomplete. Let us put it in perspective. Money is temporary. Achievements fade. Titles and awards disappear. But when you touch lives, teach knowledge, solve problems, and create enduring systems, your impact multiplies. Generations remember value, not dollars. Future innovators, leaders, and problem solvers inherit the benefits of your choices. That is the ultimate form of wealth. Now, here is a mindset anchor. Every action, either a deposit or a withdrawal in your legacy bank. Every decision either multiplies impact or wastes potential. Every investment either compounds your influence or disappears with you. Ask yourself constantly, am I building for tomorrow or just for today? Am I creating temporary results or permanent structures? Am I leaving a footprint or just dust? You have a choice. Live for comfort, recognition, or fleeting satisfaction. Or live for impact, systems, and a legacy that continues when you are gone. It is not about wealth alone. It is not about title or position. It is about how your contributions compound beyond your life. Let us summarize. Legacy is the true currency. Money fades. Impact compounds. Think long-term. Plan for generations, not months. Build systems that outlast you. Share knowledge. Teach. Mentor. Multiply influence. Align every decision with your enduring impact. Billionaires are not remembered for what they owned. They are remembered for what they gave, what they built, and what they inspired. Here is your challenge. Identify one project, habit, or system today that can outlive you. Take action. Document it. Scale it. Multiply it. Decide how your life will matter beyond your lifetime. You mastered fear, discipline, failure, systems, and decisions. Now, master your legacy, because in the end, you cannot take it with you, but you can send it ahead. And that, my friend, is the ultimate currency. Chapter 20. Never lose the broke mindset that got you here. The enduring edge. One of the most surprising truths about wealth is that the mindset that creates it is often the opposite of the mindset people adopt once they achieve it. During the climb, people are resourceful, they are disciplined, they are deliberate. They stretch every dollar, every hour, every opportunity. They are hungry, they are curious. They are humble enough to learn. They are hungry enough to execute. They are frugal enough to reinvest. That is the broke mindset, and it is responsible for the rise. But once money arrives, many abandon the very habits that made success possible in the first place, and slowly, without noticing, comfort kills the drive that hunger built. Billionaire thinkers avoid this trap by preserving the broke mindset, even long after they have the financial means to behave differently. Acting broke when you are broke is survival. Acting broke when you are wealthy is strategy. It is how you remain creative, disciplined, and grounded. It is how you protect yourself from lifestyle inflation, ego-driven decisions, and wasteful spending. The broke mindset is less about poverty and more about approach. It is about optimizing instead of overspending. It is about solving problems instead of outsourcing everything. It is about refusing complacency. When you have no money, you learn to build with constraints. Constraints force innovation. They force negotiation. They force experimentation. Constraints sharpen your thinking and strengthen your execution. Many successful founders credit their lack of resources as the reason they learned leverage. When you cannot throw money at problems, you throw creativity at them. You throw relationships at them. You throw patience and ingenuity at them. These are the muscles that generate wealth, and those muscles atrophy when people upgrade to convenience too quickly. The broke mindset also protects you from the trap of validation. When people start winning, they feel pressure to display their success. Nicer cars, bigger houses, designer brands, luxury experiences. None of these things are inherently negative. But when they become proof instead of preference, they become liabilities. Validation spending is the quickest way to convert financial achievement into financial vulnerability. Billionaire thinkers do not spend to impress. They spend to enhance. They do not chase applause. They chase advantage. Acting broke also means maintaining a bias for resourcefulness. Resourceful people ask, how can I do this better for less? Who knows what I do not? What is the most efficient path? Resourceful thinking compounds because it prioritizes optimization. People who lose the broke mindset default to convenience. Just pay someone to do it. Just upgrade it. Just replace it. Just outsource it. Excessive convenience is dangerous. It slowly transfers control away from you, and control is one of the foundational assets in wealth creation. There is also a psychological element. Comfort is seductive. Comfort makes you less aggressive, less curious, less observant. and less prepared. Comfort removes urgency. It delays action. It weakens resilience. When everything is easy, your tolerance for difficulty shrinks. Then, when life inevitably brings challenges, economic downturns, market shifts, new competition, changing technology, comfort becomes a liability. A broke mindset keeps you mentally sharp in a way wealth alone never will. Another benefit of the broke mindset is humility. When you remember what it felt like to have nothing, you treat opportunities with respect. You treat money with respect. You treat people with respect. You avoid entitlement. Entitlement kills more potential than failure ever did. The moment someone believes they are owed success, owed applause, owed loyalty, or owed relevance, they decline. Billionaire thinkers keep the humility that scarcity taught them. They keep learning. They keep asking questions. They keep training. They keep improving. They never assume they have arrived. But the broke mindset must evolve as you rise. It is not about staying small. It is not about rejecting growth. It is not about refusing to invest. It is about remembering the principles that created momentum and applying them at higher levels. For example, frugality at the bottom means cutting unnecessary spending. Frugality at the top means allocating capital wisely. Hustle at the bottom means doing the work yourself. Hustle at the top means building teams who can scale that work beyond you. Curiosity at the bottom means learning fundamentals. Curiosity at the top means staying ahead of trends and threats. The mindset evolves, but the foundation remains. Never losing the broke mindset also means never losing the ability to do without, the ability to do without debt, 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 the ability to do without. When you can live below your means, even when your means are large, you gain leverage, you gain optionality, you gain leverage, you gain optionality, you gain leverage. The people who look rich are often trapped by their expenses. The people who act broke are often free. In the end, wealth is not just about money, it is about behavior. And behavior is shaped by mindset. The mindset that builds wealth is rare because it requires discomfort, restraint, patience, humility, and delayed gratification. If you abandon that mindset, the moment comfort becomes accessible, you will eventually return to the conditions that forced you to learn it in the first place. Keep the mindset, keep the hunger, keep the respect for money, keep the discipline, keep the humility. That is how you ensure not only that you rise, but that you stay up. Conclusion: your billionaire era begins today. Thinking like a billionaire and acting like you are broke is a paradox on the surface. But once you have lived inside the idea for a while, it stops being a contradiction and becomes a formula. Billionaire thinking expands your vision, stretches your time horizon, refines your decision-making, and challenges how you measure progress. Acting broke grounds you in humility, efficiency, discipline, and resourcefulness. One creates acceleration, the other creates durability. Together, they create a kind of success that can survive volatility, temptation, ego, and time. Everything in this audiobook has pointed to a simple truth. Wealth is not earned in a moment. Wealth is earned through mindset, behavior, and structure, repeated over years. It is built quietly before it becomes visible. It is built privately before it becomes public. It is built internally before it becomes external. If you focus only on outcomes, you will miss the process. If you focus on the process, the outcomes will eventually become inevitable. Your future will be shaped by how you think about time, money, relationships, value, leverage, discipline, and opportunity. You have seen how long-term thinking beats short-term gratification, how humility beats ego, how curiosity beats boredom, how systems beat sweat, how frugality beats lifestyle inflation, how asymmetric bets beat cautious stagnation, how time protection beats busyness, how compounding relationships beat transactional networking, how value beats vanity, how resilience beats rejection, how invisible work beats visible posturing, how multiple income engines beat single dependency, how strategic focus beats stubborn persistence, and how legacy thinking beats consumption-driven comfort. These ideas are not motivational slogans. They are operating principles. But none of these principles matter if they stay intellectual. The wealthy do not merely understand how wealth works. They behave in alignment with it. They do not wait for the perfect time. They do not wait for approval. They do not wait for guarantees. They apply the mindset and let compounding do the rest. If there is one habit worth developing above all, it is the habit of applying insights instead of simply collecting them. Knowledge unacted upon becomes decoration. Knowledge acted upon becomes transformation. The greatest threat to building a richer life is not failure. It is drift. Drifting happens when you respond to life instead of directing life. When you follow convenience instead of intention. When you live by comparison instead of contribution. Thinking like a billionaire is an antidote to drift because it forces you to choose what matters, to choose how you invest your time, to choose how you allocate your resources, to choose what you build, to choose where you are going and why. If the broke mindset taught anything, it is that hunger is powerful. Hunger moves people. Hunger sharpens focus. Hunger builds resilience. But hunger does not have to disappear when conditions improve. You do not have to wait for struggle to behave like a builder. You do not have to wait for scarcity to behave with discipline. You do not have to wait for failure to behave with humility. You can preserve the mindset without preserving the hardship. That is the evolution. That is the goal. Where you go from here is up to you. You now understand the architecture. You now understand the psychology. You now understand the strategic behaviors that separate those who get ahead from those who remain stuck. The concepts are simple, but simplicity is not weakness. Simplicity is clarity. Complexity confuses. Simplicity compounds. In the end, wealth is freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom of direction, freedom of expression, freedom from fear, freedom from desperation, freedom from dependency. Thinking like a billionaire will show you how to build that freedom. Acting like you are broke will make sure you keep it. The next decade of your life will reflect the mindset you adopt today. Choose the one that compounds. Choose the one that lasts. Choose the one that builds a life worth living and one worth leaving behind. You have the tools. You have the choice. The question is, will you act? Every thought you think is a seed. Every action you repeat is a brick. Every belief you defend is a wall between you and the billionaire version of yourself. You have just walked through 20 chapters of transformation, not entertainment. Transformation. Stop saying someday. Start saying today. Audit your habits. Rewrite your circle. Design your systems. Multiply your thinking. You are not here to survive. You are here to create wealth, build freedom, and leave a legacy. This is your wake-up call. Or billionaire era begins the moment you think like one. Now ask yourself, Will I keep consuming success stories or start writing mine? Thank you for listening to Master the Billionaire Mindset. Virtual wealth habits that build real success. This audiobook, filled with insights and wisdom, is now part of your mental library. Remember, the law of attraction and all these billionaire success strategies are tools. Use them. Revisit these teachings. This is not just a book review moment. It is a life review opportunity. Go forth and manifest the wealth that is rightfully yours. Your new financial story begins today. Go make today amazing.